We're going to take a look at this digital soldering station that I've been using for the past couple of months to do all my soldering. So let's get started with this. I'm Tom Kovichak, and this is Tom's Trains and Things. This channel was created to help other modelers who are in need of guidance in pursuing their dream of building a model railroad. And I do a lot of soldering on my railroad. I wanted to show you the digital soldering station that I bought a couple of months ago. I showed you a lot of soldering videos, but I never really pointed out the features of the digital soldering station. Now, this is not a resistance soldering unit. This unit keeps the temperature adjusted digitally. This is the X-Tronic, and it's a model 8050-xts soldering station. I'll show you how to program it and use it effectively. And that's the whole idea behind the thing. You get this nice soldering iron right here on a flexible cable, and it has a 7-pin connector on it, and the reason for that is it has sensors in here to feed back information to the unit so it'll keep a constant temperature whatever you set it to. And it has 3 set temperatures, and it's easy to set those temperatures, and you could do it for centigrade and Fahrenheit. So we'll get started with it right after this. If you would like to see more videos like this one and other videos about model railroading for beginners and other how-to videos, go ahead and hit that subscribe button. And while you're at it, ding that bell, and that'll notify you whenever I have a new video coming out. So let's get started with this right now. Now, I do have to warn you about one thing. I got this little holder right here, and you can see that there's a lot of holes in there, and you get extra soldering tips on there. The only problem with it is the tips don't fit in here. I called the manufacturer, and they got on it right away, and this is an extra one. But the only problem with the extra one is they still don't fit. I only have one that fit in there, and that's the very skinniest soldering tip in there. I'm just going to leave it like that because I got this like a day or two before I was heading out for the Christmas holiday, so I didn't even bother with it. I just checked it, and I said, the heck with it. I'll just file these things out, because that's what I wanted to avoid doing, was filing all these holes out so that the tips would fit in there. But that's the only problem that I found so far with it. Now, I've used it for over 2 months now, and I've been soldering some things on it. But it comes with the desoldering braid, 5 feet of braid, and you get this little cleaner right here, and the bottom of the cleaner has a layer of, and I don't know if I can get this, but there's a layer of flux underneath there, so you could just use this to clean off the tip. But anyway, that's everything that comes with it. You get this, oh yeah, and you get this little, it's an IC popper. You get 10 soldering tips on here, ranging from the very small pinpoint all the way up to a couple of flat-sided ones, and even one with a blade on it on the far left side of this. 10 tips altogether, and you can see the 10th one here that I have on the soldering iron itself. And they're easy to take off. All you have to do is unscrew this knurled nut on here and take the tip off, and you can replace them very easily. They just slide right onto the heating element that's right there. It has a very soft silicone insulated cable on it with a 7-pin connector on it to send back a signal to station. And it comes with a 6-foot long cable also. Now on this here, this is what I was showing you about, and since I started this video, I filed out all the holes so the extra tips can fit in there. You have a cradle that can be attached to the side of it where you could hold on to your spools of solder, and on the bottom of it you could put your little tip cleaning container on there also. One other item that comes with it is a magnifying work light. It has a round fluorescent tube in there, and It comes in handy, but it's pretty small. But it works as far as being able to magnify whatever you're working on. Here's the instruction sheet that comes with it and has a 1-year guarantee. And as you can see, it has a local phone number in the United States where you could call for any issues that you have with the unit. The only issue that I have with this manual is the translation from Chinese to English language was very poor, so it's hard to understand at times. I'm going to walk you through the programming on this, and it's pretty simple when you do it for the first time. You see this function CNV switch or button right here. You hold this down while hitting the power button on the side. So we'll do that. And it'll show up Fahrenheit on there because that's what I had it set at. But you could set it to centigrade, or you could set it to Fahrenheit, and we're going to keep it at Fahrenheit. Now we're going to go to the next step, and we're going to set the sleep timer on there. Now I have it set for 2 minutes right now. You could crank it up, or you could bring it down. You could set this down to 1. So we're going to keep it at 2 minutes right there. And what that does is whenever you set your soldering iron in the cradle and don't touch it for 2 minutes, the temperature is going to drop down. Now let's go on to the next one for the power off. Now right now I have it set for 5 minutes. I could drop that down to 3 minutes. So 2 minutes for the sleep timer to where it drops it down to about 212 degrees, and then an additional 3 minutes on that, it'll shut it off completely. But that's a little bit too close, so I'm going to put it back up to the 5 right there. So we have that set in right there. And so if you keep on pressing this, it'll go back to your different settings on there, okay? All right, so we'll shut this off for right now. And now we're going to go and set the temperatures on here. Now you can see right now you just have 3 lines on there, so we're going to hit the power on right here. Now set temperature number 1 is set for 650 degrees, and you can see the temperature rising right now. Okay. Number 2 I have 700. Number 3 I have 800. So I'm going to show you how I set that on there. With number 1 right here, I'm going to hit this and it's blinking, so I could drop that down, or I could set it back up to wherever I want it, and as soon as it stops blinking, it's set in there. I'll go to number 2 I have set for 700, hit the function and do the same thing here. I could set it for any temperature that I want. I'm going to keep it at 700. And when it stops blinking, it's set. And number 3, I have set at 800. Same thing, press that. It flashes. Once it stops flashing, you can't set it anymore. If you want to set it, you have to go back and hit it again to where it flashes, and then you could set the temperature on there. Now we're all set with all 3 temperatures. I'm going to bring it back down to my number 1, and you'll see that these numbers will start to drop down as it goes from 800 degrees down to 650 degrees. And that's all it takes to set up the temperatures and the initial programming of the unit. It's very straightforward. You just have to use the function switch here, and you're good to go. And then you could play around with different temperatures. That's what I did. I played around with different temperatures, trying soldering in it, and I came up with 650 degrees was a good temperature. If I find anything else that I need some other temperatures on it, then I may change it. But I got 650, 700, and 800 on there. So that's the demonstration for setting it up. Now we're going to go on to soldering some stuff. We're going to take a look at a few clips of me soldering on a rail joiner and on an SMD LED using 2 different size tips on it. Now I did an oversized tip on the LED just to show you that it still works, but And then after those two clips, I'm going to show you me soldering on this. This is a practice board for SMDs, and these SMDs are a lot smaller. I don't know if you can see it. A lot smaller than the LEDs, because I think the LEDs were like 2 millimeters or something, and these are really small. I'm going to have to get the magnifying glass out and another magnifying glass out to see this, but I'm going to use the smallest tip that I have and solder it to this board right here. Okay, so what I'm going to do on this one here is I'm going to put a little bit of solder on the rail joiner to begin with. Okay, you can see that little dab of solder on there. So all we have to do is, I'll try to do this so you can see it. Get that on there. Hold it in place. And you see when I did that, I barely had to touch it to get the solder, the melt on there. And we got a good solder joint on there. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to dab a little bit of solder on each one of these pads. And we'll see if I could do this with this iron right here. Okay. And then I have this right here. And that one went a little bit better. Okay. Well, I already put some soldering flux on the board. I'm going to put this little chip on there. Now I have that on there, and I'm not going to try to move it. I have my tip up to 650 degrees. I'm going to break off a little piece of solder here. This is my first attempt at something this small, and I hope it comes out. And I don't know if you can see how small this tip is right here. It's the smallest tip that I have. And I'm going to put some solder on this thing. And hopefully, where's my tweezer? This thing does not move while I'm doing this. Okay, I'm going to turn this around on this side here. And I hope I didn't have too many things in the way. There we go. I don't know if you can get a good look at this right here, but that's what I did with that. Right there with this tip right here. I don't think I did too bad for the first time doing something that small. And if you want to see how small this thing actually is, I'll put it up against my finger here. Here's one just like it. And there it is right there. You can't really see the pins on there from here. But anyway, that's how small that thing is. Now, that's the first time that I've done anything that small. I've done it on the smaller SMD LEDs, but as far as a chip like that, that's my first time attempting that. And I think I did pretty good on that. I probably did it wrong, but if for those of you who do it professionally, you'll probably let me know, because I've seen a couple of you do it, and I know I didn't do it right. There's a better way of doing it where you can get the whole thing soldered all the way across and then use the wick to soak up the excess solder. But that's my first attempt at it, and I'll get better as time goes by, because there is a lot of places to solder on this and to practice on that right there. But for the first time, I think that's pretty good. Okay, now that didn't seem too hard now, did it? Yeah, right. Okay, now you know everything about the X-Tronic digital soldering station. And yeah, this is cooled down, and how to change the tips on there. And right now, this is the smallest tip that I have. You see right now, it's in sleep mode because it's been a couple of minutes since I quit using the soldering iron. And if I wait a couple of more minutes, like 3 minutes, it'll go and shut down automatically. But I'm not going to wait that long. You're probably never going to get anything that small unless you get the really pico LEDs, but most of those ones that you get, they already have the wires soldered onto it. But if you get energetic and want to do that, then you know how to do it. You get the smallest tip that you can, and you just practice with one of these practice boards. In fact, I got 2 practice boards. Both of these were together were about 15 bucks, or about seven and a half bucks a piece, and you could do a lot of practice soldering on them. And they have ones with bigger components on there if you don't think that you can do them this small like this. And I'll bring this up close and you see if you can see how small that actually is. That's my demonstration on the X-Tronic soldering station, and we'll see you.